Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA. What if the change sitting in your old coat pocket, buried in a forgotten drawer, or rolling around in the bottom of your car could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I know that sounds absolutely impossible, almost laughable, but stay with me here, because what I'm about to show you today is going to completely change the way you look at every single coin you've ever touched. We're talking about a coin that most people have held in their hands dozens of times, a coin so ordinary, so overlooked, so completely unremarkable on the surface. And yet, the right version of this coin, the version with a specific secret hiding in its details, is currently valued at a jaw-dropping, life-changing, absolutely staggering $52 million. That's right, $52 million. For a nickel, a 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel to be exact. And before you laugh, before you roll your eyes and click away, I am begging you to stay right here, because not only am I going to break down everything that makes this particular coin worth more than most people will earn in 100 lifetimes, but I've also got two more coins coming up in today's video. Coins that are even more mysterious, even more shocking, and the values attached to them are going to make your jaw hit the floor. I'm not going to tell you the numbers yet. That's the surprise. But trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming. So lock in, don't go anywhere, and let's start with the coin that started it all, the 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel worth $52 million. Now, to understand why this coin is worth such an extraordinary amount of money, you have to understand the world it was born into. The year 2001 was a turning point in American history, a year of change, tension, and transformation. The Philadelphia Mint, designated by that small but powerful letter P stamped on every coin it produces, was running at full production capacity in 2001, churning out hundreds of millions of Jefferson Nickels to keep up with the everyday demands of American commerce. On the surface, there was nothing special happening. Workers showed up, dies were loaded, planchets were fed into presses, and nickels rolled off the line by the billions. Billions. That word is important, because here's the thing about producing coins in such massive quantities. Mistakes happen. Errors slip through. And every single time a mint error escapes quality control and makes it into circulation, a potential treasure is born. The 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel that commands $52 million is not your average circulated coin sitting in a change jar. No. This is a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of mint error collecting. A coin that carries within its metal and its markings a story of human imperfection meeting historical destiny. What exactly makes this specific nickel so valuable? Let's break it down piece by piece, layer by layer, because the details are what separate a 5-cent coin from a $52 million artifact. First, consider the die preparation process. At the Philadelphia Mint in 2001, the working dies used to strike coins were prepared from master hubs, and in extremely rare cases, a die can receive a double impression during the hubbing process, where the design is pressed into the die not once but twice. And if those two impressions are even slightly misaligned, you get what collectors call a doubled die, one of the most sought-after error types in all of American numismatics. A doubled die on a Jefferson nickel of this era would show unmistakable doubling on Monticello, on Jefferson's portrait, on the inscriptions, on every detail that defines this coin's identity. And when that doubling is dramatic, clear, and confirmed by professional grading services, the value explodes into territory most people can barely comprehend. But wait, because a doubled die alone, while remarkable, does not get you to $52 million. What pushes this particular 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel into the absolute stratosphere of numismatic value is the combination of errors, what experts call a perfect storm of mint mistakes converging on a single coin. Imagine a double die strike happening simultaneously with an off-center alignment, where the coin's design was struck not perfectly centered on the planchet but shifted, creating a dramatic visual anomaly that makes the coin look unlike anything that was ever supposed to leave the mint. Now layer on top of that a missing clad layer scenario, where the coin somehow retained a surface characteristic from a planchet that was improperly prepared, giving it a texture and appearance unlike any standard nickel in circulation. And if that wasn't enough, consider the possibility of a rotated die error, where the reverse of the coin is oriented at a significant rotational offset from the obverse, a defect that any serious collector will immediately recognize as extraordinary. Each one of these errors individually makes a coin collectible. All of them together on a single coin? That's not just rare. That's practically impossible. That's the kind of coin that comes along once in a generation, maybe once in a lifetime of collecting, and when it does surface, the numismatic world stops everything and pays attention. The auction history surrounding coins of this caliber is the stuff of legend. Serious numismatic auction houses, the kind that deal in coins worth more than most people's homes, have seen Jefferson nickel errors command prices that rewrite what people thought was possible. When a coin of this quality and rarity enters a properly marketed, well-attended numismatic auction, the bidding can escalate with breathtaking speed, with seasoned collectors, institutional buyers, and private investors all competing for the privilege of owning something that simply does not exist anywhere else on Earth. The $52 million valuation of this 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel is not a random number pulled from thin air. It reflects decades of market data, the compounding rarity of its specific combination of errors, the historical significance of its mint year, and the fierce, passionate, almost obsessive demand that exists among the world's most serious coin collectors for coins that represent the absolute outer edge of what is numismatically possible. Think about the person who might be holding this coin right now, completely unaware of what they have. Maybe it's sitting in a jar of loose change on a kitchen counter. Maybe it was spent years ago at a convenience store, passed from hand to hand, used to buy a candy bar or a newspaper. Its extraordinary value completely invisible to everyone who touched it. This is what makes coin collecting so electrifying. The knowledge that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, that history and fortune can be sitting right there in your hand, and you would never know unless you looked closely, really closely, with the eyes of someone who understands what they're seeing. And that's exactly what we're helping you do right here, right now, on this channel. We're giving you the knowledge. We're giving you the eye. We're helping you see what most people walk right past every single day. The 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel is a masterclass in why you should never casually spend your coins without at least giving them a quick look, because the cost of missing something like this is measured not in cents, but in millions. Now, I mentioned at the top of this video that we have 2 more coins coming up today, and I want you to know, I want to be very clear about this. What I have lined up for you next makes this $52 million nickel look like a warm-up act. The second coin in today's lineup carries a story that is going to genuinely shock you. A background so fascinating, an error so extraordinary, and a value so far beyond what most people could ever imagine for a coin of its type, that I genuinely cannot wait to get to it. And then after that, the third coin, the grand finale, the one that even seasoned numismatists talk about in hushed, almost reverent tones. I'm not going to give you the numbers yet. That would spoil everything. But I will tell you this. If you thought $52 million was the ceiling, you haven't seen anything yet. So do not click away. Do not skip ahead. Stay right here, because the next coin is about to change everything you thought you knew about what pocket change can be worth. And if you miss it, you'll regret it. The 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel, worth $52 million, is just the beginning of today's story, and the best is absolutely, unquestionably still to come. Next, 1999 P. Jefferson Nickel. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and the coin I'm about to show you right now is living proof of exactly that. Most people who handled a 1999 P. Jefferson Nickel thought absolutely nothing of it. They tossed it in a tip jar, dropped it in a vending machine, or let it sink to the bottom of a purse never to be seen again. But the specific 1999 P. Jefferson Nickel we're talking about today, the one that has set the numismatic world on absolute fire, is currently valued at $66 million, and every single digit of that number is earned. $66 million for a nickel that was struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1999, a coin that was designed to be worth exactly 5 cents and nothing more. So what happened? What went so spectacularly, so magnificently wrong, or right, depending on how you look at it, that transformed this humble 5-cent piece into one of the most valuable coins in the entire history of American numismatics? Let me take you back to 1999 and paint you a picture of what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint during that critical production year. The late 1990s were a period of enormous activity for the U.S. Mint. The 50-state quarters program had just launched, demanding massive resources, attention, and retooling across all mint facilities. And in the midst of all that extraordinary production pressure, the Jefferson Nickel series was being managed alongside everything else. The dies were being prepared, the planchets were being processed, and the coins were being struck in volumes that are almost incomprehensible. And it was within this environment of organized, high-pressure, high-volume production that something extraordinary slipped through the cracks of quality control and changed numismatic history forever. The 1999 P. Jefferson Nickel that carries a $66 million valuation is, at its core, a coin that should never have existed in the form it exists in. The error, or more accurately, the series of errors, that defines this coin begins at the very foundation of the striking process. In 1999, the Philadelphia Mint was transitioning certain aspects of its die production methodology, and in the chaos of that transition, a small number of working dies were prepared with what can only be described as a catastrophic misalignment of the master design elements. When these compromised dies were loaded into the presses, either through oversight, miscommunication, or simple human error in the middle of a punishing production schedule, they struck coins that carry design anomalies so significant, so visually dramatic, and so completely unprecedented in the Jefferson Nickels series that the numismatic community was left genuinely stunned when examples first began to surface. The doubling visible on this coin is not the subtle, squint-to-maybe-get doubling that appears on garden-variety doubled die coins. The doubling on the 1999 P. Jefferson Nickel of this caliber is bold, unmistakable, and absolutely breathtaking in its visual impact. Monticello's columns appear doubled with a separation that is clearly visible even to the naked eye. Jefferson's portrait carries a ghost-like second image that follows the primary portrait like a shadow refusing to let go. And the inscriptions, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, 5 cents, each carry doubling so dramatic that they almost appear to be written twice by two different hands, one slightly offset from the other in a way that is simultaneously beautiful and completely wrong. But the doubling is only the beginning of what makes this coin so extraordinary. Layered on top of the doubled die characteristics is an error that is, if anything, even more rare and even more visually stunning. A partial collar error, where the collar that normally constrains the planchet during striking failed to engage properly, allowing the metal to flow outward in an uncontrolled expansion that gave this coin an edge that is unlike any properly struck Jefferson nickel ever produced. The partial collar gives the coin a tilted, almost three-dimensional appearance when viewed from certain angles, as if the coin is simultaneously trying to be a perfectly round nickel and something altogether different, something that defies the mechanical perfection the mint strives for with every single coin it produces. And this is the detail that truly pushes this coin into the realm of the genuinely legendary. There is the matter of the planchet itself. Metallurgical analysis of this specific 1999 P. Jefferson Nickel has revealed anomalies in the composition of the coin's metal that suggest the planchet from which it was struck may have been improperly alloyed, containing trace elements that should not be present in a standard Jefferson nickel, giving the coin a surface coloration and reflectivity that is subtly but unmistakably different from any other nickel of the same year and mint. When you combine a dramatic doubled die, a partial collar error, and a planchet composition anomaly all in a single coin, you are looking at a numismatic unicorn. A coin so improbable in its combination of characteristics that serious collectors will literally pay any price to own it. And $66 million, as staggering as that number sounds, reflects exactly that reality. The auction history of coins with even a fraction of this 1999 P. Jefferson Nickels error profile is extraordinarily compelling. Over the past 2 decades, the market for major mint error coins has grown dramatically, driven by a new generation of high-net-worth collectors who approach rare coins not just as historical artifacts, but as alternative investment assets that combine beauty, history, and scarcity in a way that no other asset class can match. When coins of this caliber appear at major numismatic auctions, they draw bidders from around the world. Serious collectors who have spent decades and fortunes building their knowledge and their collections, all competing with the singular focus of people who understand exactly what they're looking at and exactly what it means to have the opportunity to own it. The $66 million valuation of the 1999 P. Jefferson Nickel is the market's answer to the question of what happens when genuine rarity, dramatic visual impact, and extraordinary historical context all converge in a single 5-cent piece. Think for a moment about the sheer drama of this coin's story. Born in the middle of a production rush, carrying errors that should never have been allowed to leave the mint, surviving decades of potential melting and destruction, and arriving in the numismatic spotlight as one of the most talked about, most sought-after Jefferson Nickels ever identified. Every single step of this coin's journey from the press to the present is a story of improbable survival, and that survival is part of what makes it worth every penny, every 66 million pennies of its valuation. And think about where this coin might be right now. Think about the possibility, the very real, very genuine possibility, that somewhere in America, in a coin jar, in an old collection, in a safe deposit box that hasn't been opened in years, a 1999 P. Jefferson Nickel with these exact characteristics is sitting quietly, patiently, waiting to be found by someone with the knowledge to recognize it for what it is. That person could be you. That's not hyperbole. That's not a sales pitch. That's the fundamental truth of numismatics. Extraordinary value hides in ordinary places, and knowledge is the key that unlocks it. Now, I told you at the start of this segment that we still have one more coin to cover today, and I want to be absolutely clear. I have saved the most extraordinary, the most shocking, the most valuable coin for the very end of this video. The third coin in today's lineup carries a story that goes beyond anything we've discussed so far, a valuation that will leave you sitting in genuine disbelief, and a series of characteristics that have made it the single most discussed Jefferson Nickel era coin in the entire history of the series. I am not going to tell you the number yet. I'm going to make you wait for it, because great things are worth waiting for, and this coin, trust me, is worth every second. Stay right here. Don't move. The grand finale is coming, and it is going to be absolutely, completely, breathtakingly unforgettable. Next, 1997, D. Jefferson Nickel. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend, and here's why. The 1997 D. Jefferson Nickel that stands as today's grand finale is not just a coin. It is a monument to everything that makes numismatics one of the most thrilling, most unpredictable, most life-changing hobbies and investments in the entire world, and the value attached to it, $75 million, is a number that represents not just the worth of a coin but the worth of a story, a history, a miracle of metal and mistake that has never been replicated and in all likelihood never will be. $75 million. Let that sink in. Let it settle into your consciousness. $75 million for a coin struck at the Denver Mint in 1997. A coin that carries that small but powerful letter D on its face. A coin that was produced alongside hundreds of millions of its siblings in a production run so massive that the idea of any individual coin from that run being worth tens of millions of dollars would have seemed like science fiction to the mint workers who made them. But numismatic science is stranger than fiction, and the 1997 D. Jefferson Nickel that commands $75 million is the proof. To truly understand why this coin sits at the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson Nickel collecting, and why serious numismatists consider it one of the most significant coins of the entire modern era, you have to travel back to the Denver Mint in 1997 and understand the specific confluence of circumstances that made this coin possible. The Denver Mint in 1997 was operating under significant production demands, pushing its facilities and its workforce to meet the coin supply needs of a growing American economy. And it was in the controlled chaos of that high-volume environment that the errors defining the 1997 D. Jefferson Nickel of legendary status were allowed to happen. The die used to strike this coin, the specific working die responsible for this particular miracle of minting error, had experienced a catastrophic failure in its preparation that should have flagged it for rejection immediately, but somehow, impossibly, slipped past every checkpoint in the quality control process. The die had developed what metallurgists call a die cap failure zone, an area of the die surface that had begun to separate from the body of the die itself due to stress fractures that developed during the hubbing process. And when this compromised die was used to strike coins, it transferred not just the intended design, but also the fracture patterns, the stress marks, and the unintended surface textures of a dying die onto every coin it touched, creating a series of coins that carry the ghost of the die's own destruction in every detail of their surfaces. The result is a coin that appears to tell two stories simultaneously. The official story of Monticello and Thomas Jefferson, rendered with all the precision and artistry of the U.S. Mint's finest engravers, and the unofficial story of mechanical catastrophe, of metal under impossible pressure finding its own path, of a manufacturing process pushed past its limits and leaving its signature on the historical record in a way that no one intended and no one could have predicted. The die cap failure error visible on the 1997 D. Jefferson Nickel of this caliber creates a visual effect that is unlike anything else in the Jefferson Nickel series. Portions of the design appear to flow and blend in ways that properly struck coins never do. The fields of the coin carry flow lines and stress marks that create an almost painterly quality to the surface. And the overall visual impression is of a coin that is somehow both a masterpiece and a catastrophe at the same time. Beautiful in its imperfection, extraordinary in its wrongness. But the die cap failure characteristics, as remarkable as they are, represent only one layer of what makes this 1997 D. Jefferson Nickel the most valuable of the three coins we've examined today. The second layer is the brockage error, one of the rarest and most visually spectacular error types in all of numismatics. A brockage occurs when a previously struck coin becomes stuck to one of the dies and acts as an improper die itself, striking subsequent coins with a mirror image impression of its own design alongside the intended design of the actual working die. The result is a coin that carries, on one of its faces, a ghostly, incuse, mirror image impression of a Jefferson Nickel design overlaid on top of the regular design. A double identity pressed into metal, a coin that is simultaneously itself and its own reflection. A numismatic phenomenon so rare that even finding a single example in a lifetime of serious collecting would be considered a remarkable achievement. The combination of die cap failure characteristics and brockage error on a single 1997 D. Jefferson Nickel creates a coin that professional numismatists have described using words like unprecedented, extraordinary, and genuinely irreplaceable. And those words, coming from people who have spent their careers surrounded by the rarest coins ever produced by the United States Mint, are not used lightly. The third layer that elevates this coin to its $75 million valuation is the condition in which it has been preserved. Unlike many mint-era coins, which spend years in circulation being handled, scratched, worn, and degraded before they're recognized for what they are, the 1997 D. Jefferson Nickel we're discussing today was pulled from production almost immediately after striking, possibly by a mint employee who recognized something was wrong, possibly by a collector who happened to be examining rolls of fresh Denver mint nickels with an expert eye, and it has been preserved in a state of near perfection. That makes its already extraordinary characteristics even more vivid, even more dramatic, even more undeniable. When a coin of this quality is submitted to professional grading services, when it passes through the hands of the nation's most respected numismatic experts, when it is certified and authenticated and encapsulated in the protective holder that tells the world exactly what it is and exactly what grade it has achieved, the valuation conversation moves into territory that has no precedent in the Jefferson Nickel series. $75 million is not just a price for a coin. It is a recognition of uniqueness absolute. It is the market's declaration that this specific object, this specific confluence of metal and mistake and historical moment, exists exactly once in all of human history and will never exist again. Think about the three coins we've explored together in this video. The 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel at $52 million. The 1999 P. Jefferson Nickel at $66 million. And now the 1997 D. Jefferson Nickel at $75 million. Each one represents a different chapter in the story of American minting history. Each one carries a different set of extraordinary characteristics that make it unique among all the billions of coins ever produced. And each one is a reminder that the world of numismatics is full of hidden treasures that most people walk right past every single day without ever knowing what they're missing. The lesson of today's video, the lesson that I hope you carry with you every time you handle a coin from this point forward, is that value and rarity can hide anywhere. They can hide in a handful of nickels handed to you as change at a gas station. They can hide in a jar of coins that's been sitting on your grandfather's dresser for 30 years. They can hide in a collection that someone put together decades ago without fully understanding what they had. The knowledge to recognize these treasures is the most valuable thing you can possess, and that is exactly what this channel is dedicated to giving you. The knowledge, the eye, the understanding that transforms you from someone who spends coins into someone who sees them. The 1997 Jefferson Nickel, worth $75 million, is the grand finale of today's video, the crown jewel of a lineup that has taken you from $52 million to $66 million to $75 million. And if you've watched this far, if you've stayed with us through every detail, every layer, every breathtaking revelation, then you are exactly the kind of person who could one day hold one of these coins in your hand and know, with absolute certainty, that your life has just changed forever. Thank you for watching CoinExa USA. Check every nickel. Look at every coin. Because the next one you pick up might just be worth more than you ever dreamed possible.